Dr. Sami sir, I will be acting as your moderator for question and answer session. Uh, Let me switch over to the local language so that it's a vast audience so they can understand the rules of question and answers. आपसे दरख्वास्त ये है कि अगर कोशिश कर सकें तो खड़े होकर सवाल करें और अपना नाम बताएं पहले. सवाल एक पहले सबसे पहले मर्द हजरात से होगा, फिर ख़वातीन से, और इस तरह अल्टरनेट होकर हम चलते रहेंगे. तो पहला सवाल अगर कोई करना चाहें तो वो स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं. इस दौरान में फैसल भाई, अगर मेरी आवाज़ डॉक्टर समी साहब को पहले नहीं आती तो जो दूसरा ऑप्शन चैट का है वो सवाल चैट पे उनको भेज दें. लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. द क्वेश्चन इज, सर डॉक्टर समी, इफ यू कैन हियर मी, दैट इन एट द एंड you talked about the things to do or the way forward as at a very I must say brief manner. Can you slightly explain what as an ummah we have to do to as a way forward, sir?
Yes, of course, that will probably take more time than I have, but very briefly, what we need to do is to build a movement in every society, in every community. We need to identify all the traces as well as all the elements that has Zionist and foreign influence and confront them in our own societies. And as I said, these could be people who are, Zionists could be of different faiths. And therefore, we need to identify these elements and confront them and undermine them. We need to make sure that Pakistan is not influenced by Zionist structures, by Zionist ideology, by Zionist strands. And therefore, Pakistan needs to be truly independent of all the foreign influence that support the Zionist structures throughout the world. That is your task. You need to form committees and studies and studies councils and NGOs and others in order to identify these and start coalescing around them until you have your own independence, until you try to extract yourself from the pressure of the Americans who are basically in cahoots. They are the ones, and we've seen this, we saw this in Tufan al-Aqsa in the past year. They are the ones who are enabling, who are protecting, who are arming, who are doing everything they can to make sure that the Israeli regime stays on top, stays as the hegemon in the region. And therefore, we need to identify all these elements that feed into that in every society and start undermining them, start confronting them on all levels. I'm not talking about military level here. That needs a different kind of things, which would need governments and so on and so forth. I'm talking about other means. I'm talking about coalescing around a political, diplomatic, economic, commercial, legal, and so on and so forth in the media. We need education. We need to tell people in academia. We need to tell people the nature of this enemy and how, until you have your own sovereignty, all this talk about trying to advance our societies, have economic prosperity, and have a civilization model, none of that would reach the ultimate goals because it is against the Zionists how they conceive themselves, because they think every single society that advances, that it's going to be a threat to them, so they will try to undermine you. So you need to start focusing on this. You need to get rid of all Zionist elements within your own society. Cleanse it from this thought, because Zionism is very destructive, not only to the Jewish people, because they reframed and redefined what a Jew is, but they are also very destructive to other communities. And we've seen it, what they are capable of doing to the Palestinians. They really have no red lines whatsoever. They are willing to kill whoever stands in their way. And what you see today as being the present situation of the Palestinians, this could actually be the future of every other people across the world. If we let the Israelis, the Zionists, get away with their crimes today, nothing's going to stop them from doing the same thing to the Lebanese as they are doing today, to the Jordanians, Egyptians, Syrians, Saudis, and eventually to anybody who would not adhere to their dictates could be the future victim here. So what we need to do is, if we really, truly care about any kind of future for the Muslim Ummah, we need to confront this challenge. This challenge is part and parcel of the imperialist imposition on the Muslim world. As I said, Zionism is a settler, colonial, racist, supremacist, aggressive ideology that is spearheading the West's quest towards controlling the Muslim Ummah and this region. And therefore, we can't afford not to confront it first on, and do this in a way that can bring about the elements of all the Muslim Ummah. This is not a fight for the Palestinians. Palestinians are on the front line, but they are far from being able to do it by themselves. And therefore, every single person across the world, particularly the Muslim world, must feel as part and partner of this struggle. You're not somebody who's going to aid the Palestinians. You are part of this struggle. Think of where you can hit. Everybody has a role to play. Think where you are. Where can I help? Can I help in the political side, economic, academia, culture, education, legal, media, wherever you are? You can certainly help in the best way you can.
दूसरा सवाल ख़वातीन की तरफ से.
It in the Palestinian people that the children, the women, everybody is still sitting on the rubble and not leaving the land. Why? What is it in their DNA which we need to praise and we need to inculcate in ourselves also?
Sir, the question is, what is actually fed in the DNA of the people, women and children, and even all races of life? They are being cornered by Israelis, and still they are standing tall.
I think at the center of it certainly is faith. The Palestinian people, particularly in Gaza, really have very strong faith in Allah and very strong faith in their determination and steadfastness to gain back their rights. You got to understand that this generation is the 5th generation that has been suffering tremendously. This is not just a random people who have just existed in Gaza. This Nakba has taken place back in 1948. This is something that we have embedded in our own DNA, in our own lives, that our parents, our grandparents have suffered tremendously. And now we're seeing our children and grandchildren. We're talking about now a 5th generation of refugees. And they are determined not to succumb, not to give up, not to give in, not to surrender, not to accept these realities, but they will continue to struggle until they gain their freedom. This is something that is embedded in their own, from the very time that they are born. This is something that is part and parcel of your personality when you grow up. This is something that you talk about when you're born, when you're in school, when you're on the dinner table, when you talk to your parents and your grandparents and your children. This is something, it's a struggle. It's a universal struggle that the Palestinians have been conditioned that they will not accept Zionist dictates, Zionist encroachment, Zionist hegemony, that we must struggle. And I'm not talking about every single Palestinian around the world, but the majority of them are like this. So when we talk about people who have been under occupation in Gaza and control, they are under siege for 16 years. They are under occupation for 57 years. Most of these refugees are descendants of the 1948 refugees. That's 5 and 6 generations of people who have been struggling to gain their freedom and independence, to get justice, to take revenge against those who killed their parents and grandparents and dispossessed them, to come back to their ancestors' home. We're talking about people in the West Bank who have also been not only under crippling occupation, military occupation and brutality, but also living in a apartheid state where they're denied every right, that the Israeli can go there and the settler can go there, burn and torch their homes. They can kill them with impunity. They can take their children. They can have them stand in the heat. They can take off their clothes and humiliate them in front of their parents and in front of their children. This is a daily life for the Palestinians that gives you the strength that you need to fight back and challenge such regime. The same thing for people in the diaspora, particularly in the tents, in the camps, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in other places where they have been basically living a life that has no meaning whatsoever, except to struggle and gain back their freedom. It is this awareness on the part of the Palestinians that they cannot succumb, that they cannot give up. And this is what frustrates the Zionists, that after almost 80 years of dispossession, of brutality, of oppression, of injustice, of killing, of exile, and still the Palestinians are willing to sacrifice, are willing to stand up, are willing to challenge them with as much determination as always, and with very little power, because the balance of power certainly has been growing on the part of the Zionists, and yet the determination and steadfastness and resilience of the Palestinians have only grown.
And abroad are very vocal about the very concept of not having Zionist state. When they can have a propaganda based on falsehood, whereas their own religious tall figures and rabbis and all of those people very clearly deny this very concept of Zionist state, why not we are not able to tell the people living in Israel that they must understand that this is something, a sinister thing it was, and it is one of the biggest mistake of this time. In one of the holy books of, I think in the chapter Matthew, I wrote an article a few days back for a National Defense University, where they are being told that they are the salt of the dough of the world. So my request is that expose the Zionist regime to their own people. And I believe if that can be inculcated into the hearts and minds of those young Jewish people, those who have been misled, would be a great way to make sure that the Jewish diaspora remains as it is. And when we were in Spain, we were together. And we believe that we are from the same progeny. We are cousins in a way. Thank you very much.
Sir, your name?
Mohammed Anwar Salim Hashmiji.
Sir, the question is that if by propaganda or by falsehood by Zionists, they are reaching out the world, why not we can reach out the people in Israel and open their falsehood, what their governments and their militaries are doing?
Well, actually, there are several strands of Jewish communities. Unfortunately, the dominant one is the Zionist narrative. But as you pointed out, there is actually a large segment of the Jewish communities in which they reject Zionism. Zionism, when it started in late 19th century, early 20th century, was a minority movement within the Israelis, but was very quickly embraced by imperialist powers, beginning with Britain and then with the United States, and then, of course, with very powerful interests within the Jewish communities, in which it became dominant within the Jewish discourse, the Zionist discourse. But still, there are very important communities who oppose vehemently the Zionist narrative. The notion that somehow we can penetrate the Israeli society, I think, is probably not realistic, but certainly we can, and we are actually at the time, making a huge progress within Jewish communities in the diaspora, but particularly in the United States. We have to realize that there are about 16 million Jews around the world, about 7 million or a little over 7 million in Palestine, occupied Palestine, but there are about close to 6 million also in America. Many of young Jewish Americans, not majority yet, but many of them have been vocal about their rejection of Zionism and Zionist ideology. And that needs to be promoted. As I said, I have identified 12 imperatives in which the Zionist state, the Zionist regime, the Zionist structures depend on, I call them 12 columns or 12 imperatives. One of them actually is the support and loyalty of Jewish communities around the world. So to undermine this within the Jewish communities is very important. And I agree with you that we need to do more within that, because that is actually for the benefit of Jews. As you pointed out, when they were faced with three choices, the same as Muslims in Islamic Spain and Andalusia, they were also faced with either conversion or exile or execution, the same as the Muslims. Where did they go? Many of them came to the Muslim countries, all the way from Morocco, even here in Istanbul and beyond. And what we're telling them today, that we do have a solution. If you thought that the Zionist state is going to save you from the racism of an anti-Semitism of Europe and the West, fine, you can come to the Muslim countries the same way you did, but not as a sovereign country, not as a hegemonic country, not as a country that wants, or an entity that wants to control this region. That would be totally unacceptable. And also to take the rights and dispossess the Palestinians. That would be totally unacceptable, and it would not be heeded. It would not be, it would be challenged, and you would be fought. But if you want to come here as immigrants, because Europe is racist, anti-Semitic, then our religion, our faith, our society, our culture accepts that. But this would be the way to treat you. So we do have a solution for the Jewish problem. You have to understand what the West, particularly imperialist powers, did. They wanted to solve two problems at once. They wanted to solve their Jewish problem, which they called the Jewish problem in Europe, because of their racism and anti-Semitism against their Jewish communities. And they also wanted to solve what is they called the Eastern question, or the Oriental question, which is whenever they come and control or divide this region, or try to have it under control, quickly it will reassert itself and fight back and kick them out, as happened in the Crusaders and other ways with imperialist powers. So they wanted to come and implant a Zionist, racist, supremacist state to get rid of its Jewish communities in Europe, put them in the midst and the center of the Muslim world, and then keep that Muslim world divided, weak, under control, and it will never be able to unite again. It will never be able to reassert itself again. It will never be able to bring about a new model for humanity, because it will always be occupied with this threat, as this threat, with the support of the West, will keep it fragmented, divided, weak, under control. That's what we're faced with. And that's what makes Palestine a central issue. That's what makes Palestine a very important issue, other than the issues across the Muslim world, because this is the issue that will tell us whether or not we have a future as a Muslim ummah. If we can get rid of this threat, that will give us the space and the freedom and the independence to build our own civilizational model. That's why I keep telling people that Palestine is different, not because it has a particular characteristic, or the Palestinians have a particular characteristic that doesn't exist with other communities. It's because of the nature of the enemy. India occupied, India and Pakistan and this whole region, but at the end it had to withdraw. It was not a situation where it could be permanent. What they did with Israel was to implant it in the center, in the midst of the Muslim world, so that it can remain there, which is the sign of the weakness and fragmentation and disunity and chaos that the Muslim world will have to live under, as long as this entity, this regime, stays in our midst. That's why we need to turn all our efforts to get rid of it, to get rid of the foreign influence, to eradicate it, to dismantle the Zionist structures. When we say dismantle the Zionist structures, we're not talking about killing Jews. In my book, this is not a religious-based conflict. Yes, religion plays a great role in mobilizing people, in getting them ready to confront this threat. But we're not there because we are anti-Semitic. We're not there to kill Jews. We're not there to confront Jews. Jews can be as much Jews to practice their religion as they want, but not aggressive, not Zionist in the way that they want to control our lives and look down upon us as subhumans, as they are doing today in Palestine. That's what we're against, and that's what Islam is against, and that's what we will not allow. We will fight until we get rid of all these racist, supremacist structures. But Jews can stay as religious as they want to be.
Sir, such a vibrant and engaging session, it should go on, but due to paucity of time, we will switch to our last question, and that is from ladies' side. After that, आप लोगों के जो भी सवालात हैं, वो आप मुझ तक पहुंचाएं. हम वो ईमेल के थ्रू डॉक्टर साहब से आप कांटेक्ट करके आपको उसका जवाब लेने की कोशिश करेंगे. Your questions are worthy than that. Ladies' side, last question of the session.
My name is Hafsa Khalid Ali. And my question is, it's actually an extension of the first question. So as women, we're also trying to create and be part of the movement as well, and we're doing it from our own homes. So a few things that we've done is that we're bringing up our children in a way that we're teaching them that Israel is actually or the Zionists are actually an enemy to the Muslim Ummah. And the second thing that we're doing is we're boycotting all of those products. The third thing we're doing as part of our workplace is that we're trying to communicate this to as many people as possible. But my question is, what are the next or what are the other more practical steps that we can take as females who may not necessarily have the same exposure to situations or opportunities as men? So what else can we do?
Sir, the question is that we in Pakistan are doing our best. And sir, let me tell you, it's a female perspective, and it is a very right perspective that we are doing our best to expose the Zionism. We are boycotting the Israeli products. But what next further steps should be there from the female perspective that we should inculcate so that this thing is catered in a better way, sir?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your efforts. It's an excellent question, and I think it deserves a much expanded response, which would include also time that obviously I don't have. But what I would like to point out is that we need a more structured movement in which both males and females will be part of it, not just males and not just females. And certainly you're doing your part in terms of boycott, education, inculcating in your own children and communities the danger of Zionism, not only on Palestine and the Muslim Ummah, but also in your own societies. You need to confront and stand up to all Zionist influences in your own societies. We need to identify these influences in all spheres. Certainly we can do much, but it has to be a very structured, long-term movement, not just people here and there. This is how it can make an impact, because also women are married to men. You can certainly make an effort to educate your own men that they need to start also moving in that direction in all spheres. I personally would like people in Pakistan to start lobbying their government. And when I talk to people from Pakistan, sometimes they are bewildered. They say, what are you talking about? I said, we need Pakistan to give a nuclear cover to all Muslim countries, that Israel cannot feel immune for using its own nuclear arsenal on any Muslim country. That would be a threat to Pakistan. Of course, people say, but this is for India, it has nothing to do with Israel. No, it does, because Israel also is undermining Pakistan's security here. This is the feeling of the Muslim Ummah. Pakistan is the only Muslim country that has something that no one else has. But every other Muslim country, if it takes a strong stand, is threatened by this Zionist entity, by this Zionist enterprise. So Pakistan will not move in that direction until Pakistani people start demanding it from their politicians. I talked previously to some generals in the Pakistani army, and they were also a little surprised. They said, but this is for India, it has nothing to do with this. No, it has everything to do. This is the true feeling of the Muslim Ummah. So women, men, old, young, they need to start thinking in those terms. What undermines the Muslim Ummah also would undermine Pakistan. If Israel feels immune that it could use a nuclear weapon against any Muslim country, then Pakistan at one point could also feel that threat. But that means you are taking on very, very strong interest within your own societies and worldwide. Certainly there will be consequences for that. Most politicians and most people who are in bed with the West would find this threatening. That's why I said we need a comprehensive movement that will move in all these directions. So women can help in many instances in the economic boycott, in studies, in trying to identify Zionist influences in your own societies, and trying to find. So for everything you find, you need to start thinking about strategies, tactics, policies, like I pointed out on the nuclear, and projects. So find out in this, what can I do there? Can I do a project in which I can embrace everything from start to finish? Is it a policy I'm trying to advance and lobby for? Is it a strategy that I can advise other people? Is it a tactic I could use? And so on and so forth. That's what we need to do, both from men and women. Start thinking on strategic term, long term, something that will be sustained, done, do the research done, and start coalescing, organizing, mobilizing in order to fulfill these objectives. This is a long-term project. This is not something that you do and then change. This is something that's going to stay with us for a long time. And if we duplicate this in every city, in every community, in every country, in every geography, in every field, then certainly we will undermine the whole Zionist enterprise. And then we can feel independent again. Then we can feel free again. Then we can have sovereignty and agency in which we can do all you can in order to revive the future of the Muslim Ummah. The next phase of the Muslim revival movement started from Medina. It ended in Istanbul about a century ago. The next phase will start in Jerusalem, and it will go global, inshallah.
Dr. Sami sir, on behalf of Suleiman Amr and the vibrant community of Karachi from all walks of life, I thank you very much from the depth of our hearts. And it's the Karachi city, I think, is the tip of the iceberg. And next we will start, inshallah, and we will invite you after the deliberation and all cities of Pakistan, sir. So, sir, once again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.